welcome to the Atrocious VMAX podcast, where myself and Sean talk about the arguably one of the best decks in format, Atrocious VMAX, arguably, actually not even up for debate anymore, a tier 1 deck. Sean, my co-host, how are you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm excited to be here on the final episode of this Eternatus-based podcast.
What?
Because after this, we're going to have to rebrand from an Eternatus-based podcast to any other deck, literally any other deck, because I am on a mission. But we will talk about that mission in a little bit. How are you doing, Jake?
Wait. But first, what do you want to rebrand to? ADP? I
don't want to. ADP is a toxic brand. ADP is toxic. Oh my god. That's basically the summation of today's podcast. Eternatus and ADP.
Shove Eternatus down Sean's throat and question why ADP exists. But not that I'm doing okay today. I've had a very busy day. I went back to the office last week, and I've been working nonstop for the last week, and I'm pretty okay with that because I don't sleep anyways. So might as well do work, be productive, get stuff done.
Well, I know that you submitted your resume and portfolio to a very prominent creator. Fingers crossed for you, Jake. I'm not going to say any more. Don't want to jinx anything.
I need good vibe. I've been refreshing my email for the last 24 hours every 10 minutes. Nothing yet, but I don't want to hold my breath, right? Because this is a big time dude. I'm sure I won't say who it is just because I don't want anybody spamming their comments or whatever. Yeah, about it. But I'm sure there are way more people that have applied that are more or have more experience that I have. But I don't know. I consider myself probably or more than likely the most dedicated individual to ever apply for literally anything.
I would say this. I would say you should be in a good spot. Honestly, I really think so. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So it's literally, you got to put yourself out
and
there.
Michael Scott right there.
Exactly.
I mean, YOLO. I've done this before. I've applied to big time people before and they've said, well, they never actually responded, but that is no.
They didn't say no, but they didn't say yes.
They didn't say yes. They actually didn't say anything at all, but I know that's just how it goes. I think of it for any of my people who are job searching or whatever, I think of it like college applications or when I was being recruited to be a college student athlete. You're going to send a lot of emails and there's a lot of people that are just not going to answer you. And that's okay because you just got to, when you find the right fit, somebody's going to take a chance on you. So again, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So anyways, what are we a character development podcast or are we a Pokemon TCG podcast?
We're a little bit of both, but today, I think we're going to lean more into Pokemon. And we'll talk more about self-help and character development next week, maybe.
I mean, whatever floats your boat. But we got a lot of things to talk about today. We got some of the future that's coming up. We also have a lot of results. There were a lot of tournaments within this past week, I feel like, and a lot of good tournaments as well, some big time ones. So we're going to be doing that. Sean has a new series. And then we also have, quite arguably, is one of the best interviews, in my opinion, one of the best interviews to reach a Pokemon TCG podcast because holy smokes, this person that we interviewed.
No, we could say who it is. They're listening to the podcast now. It's going to be in the title.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
Isaiah
true.
Bradner.
Right. We interviewed Isaiah, great kid, super awesome, but literally one of the most five-head people I've ever met before. And if you don't know what five-head is because it's Twitch language, and I'm realizing that I'm speaking a lot of Twitch language lately. Five-head just basically means 200 IQ, except 300 IQ. So that's what we got today. And then we got a new segment to start. It's a question of the day segment that I think some of you will enjoy. Hopefully you all enjoy. But anyways, Sean.
please love me.
Please love me.
Let's kick it off, though. Let's kick it off with some Vivid Voltage talk. Just jump straight into it.
So if you're unaware with what Vivid Voltage is going to be our November set coming later this year. It's just kind of our every 3 month set as usual. But there's some new stuff that was revealed in it, including the things like different types of or different amounts of each rarity and different cards that are going to be in it. So this set, Vivid Voltage in November, is going to include 6 different VMAX Pokemon, 11 Pokemon Vs, and 13 full art Pokemon Vs. So we have more full art Pokemon Vs than regular Pokemon Vs. I find that to be very, very, very interesting. We have 16 trainer cards and 7 full art supporter cards, 4 new special energy cards, 4. A lot of special energies lately, in my opinion.
One of them, I'm pretty sure, is the new metal special energy. Did you see this?
I did.
So it's basically metal frying. It doesn't help with reducing damage, but it is a replacement to metal frying pan as an energy. So gets rid of weakness for metal.
Guard energy. It's a weakness guard energy, except it provides metal energy, and it's only for metal types.
Yes.
Which, but, I mean, that's if ADP didn't need to be strong enough.
Yeah, I know. That's like, come on.
Jesus, come on, people.
But Zacian absolutely broken.
Anyways, because I talk a lot about Pokemon investing. I have kind of a series on the channel where every month I talk about the different trends of like what booster boxes are moving, what's the pricings look like, and what is it, upwards or downwards trends. The real thing for me that I find very interesting is that Vivid Voltage is confirmed to have 6 amazing rare Pokemon, or they say specifically amazing Pokemon, but then they provide pictures of the amazing rares that we saw in Legendary Heartbeat. Now, there was a lot of speculation that these amazing Pokemon were going to be put in Champion's Path, but that's obviously not going to happen anymore. So, like, Sean, I don't know what's going to be in Champion's Path besides a full art Charizard promo in the ETB.
I mean, there's got to be something in there that draws people in, because this is one of those, they're trying to make it the Hidden Fates. Well, I'll say this. Pokemon isn't trying to make it Hidden Fates necessarily. Hidden Fates just happened, right? But that's what everyone is reacting to it like. You can't pre-order one right now. They're all sold out. They're marked up $20 or $30.
Mine got refunded.
I know. It's like it's stupid, honestly, because you don't even know what's in the set. Now, if the Rainbow Zard VMAX is in the set as a pullable card, meaning not a promo that you automatically get, if it is actually in the set proper, okay, then you have one super duper chase card. And then you have the question of, are they going to include the gold cards that were in last year's Japanese special set? Like the gold Reshiram and Charizard. I mean, who knows? Honestly, like, they haven't confirmed anything. And we're at this point with this podcast is coming out, we're only like 3 weeks or 4 weeks away, 3.5 weeks away from release of Champion's Path products. So it's going to be coming soon if it comes out.
People are only buying the ETBs because there's a money card that comes with the ETB, and that is the Charizard. You look at any of the pin collections that we talked about on the podcast, you can get pin collections literally anywhere. Like, I'm sure they're not even scraping the sold out.
Yeah,
now.
I think they'll be sold out when the set drops, because look, Champion's Path has to have chase cards. It just does. Like, right now, there are no chase cards in Champion's Path that you can pull, right? Like, I don't know of any. So
there has to be a Charizard.
There's got to be something.
There's just nothing in that set. There's nothing right now that it makes me think like I need to buy these pin collection boxes, unless I wanted like the pin collections, or do they come with a promo card? I mean, the pins are all right. I mean, they're the gym badges, but like,
well, I want to collect all the gym badges. I want to be a real Pokemon master.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're the one that hasn't finished the Sword and Shield video game.
This is very true. This is very
okay.
true.
I think this is kind of okay with the conversation of Vivid Voltage. I'm sure we'll be coming back to it here in the next couple weeks.
I will say though, best set artwork logo.
It's beautiful.
So good.
It is very beautiful.
Chonky Pikachu. How do you not love Chonky Pikachu on an ETB? It's so good.
No. forget the chonky Pikachu, okay? Forget the chonky Pikachu. The Orbeetle, Gigantamax Orbeetle, or like VMAX Orbeetle, or whatever we want to call it. There's a Snorlax being taken by the Orbeetle. That's the best thing about the art. I mean, chonky Pikachu looks really good, but the Snorlax being taken by the Orbeetle, that's the real money right there. That's the real money. Anyways, now we'll move on to the next stuff. So
Meta recap. So there's a lot of things that happened. I kind of want to start off with the Players' Cup because the Players' Cup, in my opinion, is good. It's very, very good, especially for new players because the broadcasters are excellent. You know, there were very, very great players, awesome players in there. So like I was super happy about all the stuff in the Players' Cup. And it was actually super surprising to see Jack Miller and Matthew Burris go 1-2 with Luke Metal-Zashin. I believe it was the same 60. Yeah, or if it was like a couple cards, but I think it is actually the exact same 60. I think they practiced together.
They're both from Australia, so it would make sense because Australia has a very tight-knit community in their region. But we saw a lot of different things in there. We saw several people pick Eternatus VMAX. We saw 2 Centiskorch, one of them placing 5th. So that's not too bad. We obviously ADP. There was a Decidueye Goons in there. Alex Piney at 9th, tied for 9th. Shout outs to Alec. You've got BDE over there bringing Decidueye Goons. And the most interesting one, in my opinion, was Tord Reckliffe, as always, the legendary player, bringing Inteleon Frostmoth.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like he is a bit ahead of the game, realizing that Inteleon was probably going to be a decent call for the early metagame and post-rotation, which, because, you know, we'll get to this in a second, but it also had some good showings at other tournaments, right after rotation happened as well. So it's I think it's good to see, like, you know, he did pretty well. He got top 4. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think the Luke Metal winning 1-2 winning was a bit of a surprise. And I think the main reason, you may have already said this, Bronzong. I mean, everybody who thought Centiskorch was going to be good that brought it into that tournament got Bronzonged. And what Bronzong does is fire Pokemon can't do any damage to it. So you set one up and then you just leave it. And so long as you have more cards in your deck than your opponent, you win.
I mean, you can even start attacking with Bronzong. 3 Metal Energies, Shady Stamp. As you're drawing your Metal Energies, just attach them because they can't do anything else. You might as well try to take 6 prizes. I mean, you play 3 Marnies, so like you've got ways to reset the hand. But yes, Bronzong, very interesting. It's from Team Up for anyone who doesn't know. Heat Proof is the ability. Shady Stamp only does 70, so you 2-shot a Volcanion at least, though, with that.
But I was going to say, I think we can move on from Players' Cup. I think it was an interesting tournament. It was good. Very early, and it's only 16 players, right? So it's like the sample size is very small.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get into, I think what we have, like 5 different tournaments here over the course of the last week plus. That give you, and I think it tells a story as well as how the metagame developed over the course of just 1 week.
You know what, Sean? Do you want to tell this story? I want you to lead this story because I know you're so passionate about one of your positions that you may have had that we talked about the other week.
Okay. Well, my story goes as such. First tournament was the Hexter Season 2 Top Deck 2, which I commentated along with Ethan. So shout out to myself and Ethan there. And then what we saw there was actually, kind of a range of things, but a lot of Mewtwo Welder. That I think was a surprise for a lot of people. A lot of Mewtwo Welder. Only a few ADPs making it into top 16, but still a decent showing. A bunch of Eternatus, especially at the top of that 4
spots.
But then Inteleon was able to take the win over an Eternatus in the finals. So it's like, okay, cool. Eternatus, I have to admit, Eternatus is clearly a very good deck, and we will see how that evolves. But Inteleon took down the first tournament. Moving into the second Hexter event, kind of more of the same, right? The only difference here is, Mewtwo Welder seemed to take the top spot instead of Inteleon. And I think that actually, I'm looking at the second event, there was a lot less Eternatus VMAX in the top 16 on that one. May have just been that people wanted to play different decks, to be frank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised Mewtwo Welder won because I know that Mewtwo Welder has a tough time against Eternatus. So them taking down the field there was impressive. And then after that, it's all Eternatus as far as the eye can see.
It's awesome. It's actually awesome.
So if you have $200 to spend on PTC geocodes, congratulations. You too can be a winner.
Hey, I just went full five head and just pulled him.
That's
I didn't
true.
have to trade for him.
Get
I
lucky.
Just pulled him.
Get lucky, Scrubs.
So we talk about the Hexter, the last one that happened before this recording, which was Friday, August 28th. Top deck number 4. Eternatus VMAX takes the cake, going 9-1-1. Very, very interesting. Welder Mewtwo getting second in that, though. So still like a super, super strong showing. Eternatus also had appearances at 8th, 11th, 15th from that. Then you move on to some of the bigger, well, actually, I don't even know if it's some of the bigger tournaments because Ethan has been having gigantic numbers, which is awesome.
Well, I will say the annual championships was what this one was. So I think it was invitational and record-based getting in.
The JGB 2020 annual championships happened on August 30th. Had 37 players. Again, it was an invitational. So it was a series of events that happened over the course of a while. And then this is the culmination of that. Eternatus was literally everywhere. All right. In the top 16, third place, Blacephalon, 8th place, ADP, 10th place, ADP, 12th place, ADP, 16th, ADP. Everything else was Eternatus VMAX. Literally everything else.
It's absolutely insane, to be honest. Like, so much Eternatus. And the crazy thing is, all of the Eternatus lists, like, they're not really that different, Like, I think what some people are doing is what Isaiah is going to mention in his in the interview you're going to hear with them. But it's like, do you start maybe playing turbo patches or other ways to accelerate energy? But other than that, they're all basically the same.
I have never been so annoying to Sean about how well a deck has been doing, because he put it on the POG championships in that advertisement. He put the clip of him saying that Eternatus was bad.
No, I said it's not going to be. Boy. I said you're not going to have to worry that much. I didn't say it was bad.
You don't want to worry about Eternatus now?
Even underplaying it, I was clearly wrong. I will admit here on the podcast, I will take my licks. I will admit that I was incorrect about Eternatus.
To give Sean credit, though, from what I said, I've said this previously, but like as the format goes on, I think I mentioned this after like the POG championships and Eternatus was barely there. As the format moves on, people will start finding more refined lists, better lists, finding out better ways to build certain things. That's exactly what Eternatus is doing. People have just been able to practice more with it. They've been able to play more games, more matchups, more tournaments. I mean, there's so many different online tournaments. You don't just have to test with your buddies or against ladder. You can play against other people that are having these high stakes, which is why the Hexter event consistently now has like 100 people in it, which is awesome.
So I would say that looking at the last few events in particular, between Azul, the Hexter, and the JGB, it is probably fair to say that there are basically 3 decks right now in format that are particularly good and coming out in numbers. And that is Eternatus, ADP, and Mewtwo and Mew Welder. Inteleon gets a couple of honorable mentions in the top, Blacephalon a couple of honorable mentions, but generally speaking, there's 3 decks. And you know what I love about that, Jake?
What?
I love that every single one of those decks has a very similar play style in that they are big Pokemon, not big basics, not in Eternatus' case, but super big 3-price Pokemon whose goal is to attack for lots of damage. You don't have, like in the Sword and Shield, it's like, oh, I have to beat ADP and or mill or control, right? No, none of that. It's all the same. And that makes it, I think, really not easy to counter, but like it gives you a very clear line of sight to say, what is a deck that can take down the top decks in the format?
I find it to be really interesting. I like this better than the Rebel Clash format. I think that there's more variety. I think that the kind of, I mean, you look at the fall of Dragapult, you know, people are not as afraid to play other things and be like aggressive, right? Because like Dragapult has almost the same concept as ADP, not exactly for sure, but in the sense of I do damage and then I try to gust up your Dedenes and kill them. But now with kind of Eternatus gatekeeping Dragapult per se, now it's opened up different things like Mewtwo to come in and other decks like that. So then we still have to be afraid, but we're not like super afraid. Yeah, I think just like it's opened up the format a little bit, but we'll get to it a little bit later. I still think there's a problem with the format right now. It's better than what it was before, and I've enjoyed this format way more so far than Rebel Clash. Talk to me in about a month to see how I feel. But like there's still one, actually it could be two big problems, but one giant problem.
Yes, we will talk. That'll be the sign off to this episode. And I will say in a month, we're also going to have introduced a bunch of new cards from Champion's Path, right?
That's true, actually.
All of the Pokemon V that came in like those V starter decks or whatever, the V theme decks.
Yeah, we're going to have Colossal and Togekiss. People are hyped about Togekiss. I'm hyped about Colossal.
Well, actually, I think Colossal's going to be
that's Vivid Voltage.
But Togekiss, you are right. We are getting Togekiss.
And Alcremie and Gardevoir, right?
And Alcremie, Alcremie in particular.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are cards coming out that could shake up the format a little bit. Wailord. And also...
Jesus Christ,
I'm such a joke. But before we go on to the interview, because I think it's about time to go on, I just have one thing to say. While I will admit that I was incorrect on my Eternatus call, I have been inspired to create a new series called hashtag Eternatus is canceled. And the reason I'm doing that is obviously Eternatus is everywhere, right? And I cannot stand the shame of being wrong about my prediction. So in a meta manipulation move, I am creating different decks that I think can take down Eternatus. We'll actually see how it goes. It's mostly for fun for everybody out there. But on my YouTube channel, a little bit of a plug here. If you can play those decks that I'm posting, you know, small tweaks here and there, but if you can play those decks in tournaments or on ladder and prove that you are able to beat an Eternatus in some form with that deck, tweet those results to myself and Jake, and I will give you a Darkness Ablaze booster pack code. One per person.
I just want to enforce that Sean will be the one giving you the Darkness Ablaze.
Not Jake. Don't worry.
Code. I will not, because I'm poor. If you want to give me money or give me packs, if any business out there that sells codes wants to sponsor this campaign, feel free to hit us up. But well, I cannot afford to not
I will say, Jake, you could compete and you could earn packs. Why don't you?
I can.
Yeah. I mean, you're not me. You could play my decks and beat Eternatus, and you could tweet yourself.
I'm in. Doing this on stream. Twitch.tv/Atrocious Gameplay. Let's do it. Speed run.
Do we want to cut it over to the interview with Isaiah now?
But yes, let's go over again. Wonderful interview. I'm super excited for everyone to listen to it. Here is Isaiah Bradner. We are here with a special guest today. This is this year's kind of world champion. You may have heard of the Atlas Pog Championships that happened just the other weekend. We have the winner here, but not just only the Atlas Pog Championship. There are many other wonderful accomplishments that this player has done throughout the year. It is Isaiah Bradner. Isaiah, say hi to everybody.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on. So tell us a little bit of yourself, maybe give like a brief bio and, all the accomplishments that you've had this year alone.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Isaiah Bradner. I've been playing for about 4 years. I played for 3 years in the senior division, and then I aged up last year, had this last year in Masters. In Masters, I top 4'd the Atlantic City Regionals, top 8'd Knoxville Regionals, had a variety of other top 32s around the year. And then most recently, as I already mentioned, I won the Atlas Pog unofficial World Championships this year.
And not to mention just winning Atlas Pog, you kind of won it with a deck that, at least from what I've seen content creator-wise, nobody was going around talking about Peak Run. But before we get into more of like Pog and stuff, aside from that weekend, what has been your favorite moment so far as a player?
I think that my favorite moment as a player is hands down last year. I was actually able to win the North American International Championships in the senior division, and that was such a big deal to me. I was so happy to finally do that because I had put so much effort into that event. I had really been testing and grinding for a while. It had been my dream to win internationals and seniors, and I had come so close so many times. The previous year I actually got second, so being able to come back to finals again, take that title finally, I was able to, or it was just really happy for me. So that's my best memory when I think back on Pokemon.
And that would have been your last year in seniors, right?
Yes, that was my final international event.
Your senior year in seniors, and you're like, okay, if I'm gonna get in the championship here in seniors, it's got to be this year, now or never.
Yep, exactly. So it worked out well.
So what were you playing during that event, and was it Zoroark?
Yes. It was actually, I played the same 58, I guess, technically, card list as Stefan Ivanov. So tested with him and his crew up to the event, and then we brought pretty much the same deck. It was the Zoro Dugong Naganadel deck. So the kind of Zoro chess archetype is what I played at that event.
No, I was actually at that event. That was the first Pokemon event that I was able to go to and like spectate, because I didn't decide to be a competitive player until after that event, because I was like, wow, this is so cool, dude. Like, so that was kind of the first like real deck that I saw. So shout outs to you for doing that. But you said that you had like been testing with Stefan and his group and stuff like that. Let's kind of move into the Atlas Pog Championships and just your preparations, like overall for most any events. So like, especially with Darkness Ablaze coming out, this Atlas Pog Championship coming into the pre-rotation format, how do you prep for a format like that, especially when you're only going to have like one major event there?
Yeah, so a big part of my prepping for this format was actually in coaching. So I have students that I coach, and a lot of my testing originally was done through coaching because they had a deck that they really liked, and then I would play all the meta decks for this format against them. So that was a great outlet where I could play in real life Pokemon with someone, was through coaching. Another way that I did it was my friend Will Jenkins. He was testing for the Players' Cup Finals, so I played post-rotation with him. And while that isn't the same format, it had a lot of the same matchups, like Scorch, Eternatus, ADPZ. Those were all in both formats. So I could test post-rotation with him, but it could also pay off for my Pog pre-rotation. And then finally, as soon as the new set came out on PTCGO, I just started playing as much as I could. The final 2 weeks leading up to the event, I played more Pokemon than I've played in a while. So I think that was probably the biggest amount of testing for me, was just grinding as much PTCGO as I could once the cards came out online.
That's
so
cool.
Is that like,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, Sean, you go.
I was going to say, like, it just, I do like the idea that, like, teaching and learning at the same time, like via your coaching, is like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, I know that a lot of people might think like, oh, if you have a coach, I know that not everybody out there gets Pokemon coaching necessarily, but if you do, like, it's as good for the coach in some ways as it is for the student.
Oh, so, for sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane though, that you're coaching as you're like so young. Like, I know kids your age in my local area that are pretty prevalent, like seniors. Well, I guess they're younger than you since they're seniors right now, but they're younger than you. They've got big brains just like you, but I don't know if they've ever thought about coaching. So like, when did you actually start getting into that? I'm curious.
So I started getting into it my final year in seniors is when I started coaching. So I coached a few kids my final year of seniors, but I didn't really start coaching as much until my first year in masters, understandably. But yeah, I started coaching. I think a few kids asked me while I was still in seniors after I had a successful run. And then I was like, well, might as well, sure. And then I continued it into masters. It's actually something I really enjoy. I love being able to play Pokemon and being able to teach, help kids get better. But also another thing is it really helps them as well. It's really good. I really love being able to see my kids have success whenever they take a list that we made and we tested and they get finals at a regionals or they win a regionals. I love that. And I also just love talking to them in general. So coaching is one thing I really enjoy.
That's crazy. So like going back to kind of how you, Will Jenkins, you guys were playing around the same 60, relatively similar, I believe, correct?
Yeah, same 60. Me, him, and Justin Bakari all played it.
Okay, so and you've talked about doing a whole bunch of other groups of people like Stefan, he's on the other side of the world, and you're testing with him. So like, how do you decide like testing groups and then like who is good to test with for what event and things like that? Like because I have no idea. My testing group is Twitch chat. So yeah. That's how I do it. But how does that go about for you?
So I'm actually extremely lucky in that right off the bat, going into my year in masters, I got added into a great group of guys. So for the last year, I had really tested with one of my best friends, Rowan Stavanow, and Lucas Zing. Me, him, us three, we would band together and test and try to find the best play for seniors. And then my friends Michael Catron and John Eng, they would test with me a lot as well. So that's who I worked with a lot of last year. But coming into the start of this year, I was asked by Justin Koulos and Will Jenkins to join a group of players they were forming who were going to try to be the best team in North America. So we got together. It was originally me, Justin, Will Jenkins, Justin Bakari, Keanu Meany, and Kenny Britton. And then we've added a few players here and there. But it's mainly been us. I think that's 7 players. It's mainly been us 7 throughout the year. So I've really been lucky. I've gotten to know those guys really well. They've become super close to me. So that's who I've been testing with for pretty much every event this year. And I love it. So yeah, definitely I got really lucky being able to find a testing group kind of just handed to me almost.
So is that like sorry, Sean.
No, go ahead.
Is that kind of like the Team Rockets hideout? Because I know you write for Team Rockets hideout. Is that kind of are all those players kind of in that realm too?
No, none of us are really sponsored by a specific entity, or we're not really bound together by anything. It's more that we were kind of friends that knew each other before, and then we were all going to be playing Pokemon this year, so we decided to band together and make a more serious team, if that makes any sense.
What's the strategy behind everyone from a group all sort of picking a single deck? Is there actually a strategy, or is it just that you all land on, well, clearly this is the best deck, so why wouldn't we run it?
So I think that you kind of said it there, but I don't know if it's as much a strategy, but whenever you're in a group of guys and you're all testing together for a tournament, you all want to land on, the one best deck. So in general, I think the reason that most teams would play a single deck is because that's what they've all seen has been the best throughout testing. And because you're working with the same people, it just makes sense that what one person found to be the best deck is also what you would have found to be the best deck if you're all working together. There have been instances where we all split up and play separate decks. Like for Knoxville this year, I ended up playing Pidgey Control and the others all played Pika. So we just split off because we like different decks there. There's obviously nothing tying us together, but in general, I think that it's that you're all testing together, like I said before. So you're all giving the same opinions. You're all changing your deck. So it's very easy to land on the same list. And going in that same vein, I also think that it's helpful as a player to have someone else playing your same deck. It helps you feel a lot more confident. So example, for Collinsville, I hadn't really tested that much in Expanded, but Kenny Britton had played a lot, and he thought that Trevnor was the best deck. So whenever we got there, we kind of grinded Trevnor with him. We all settled on a list, and then it really felt good because we had 4 top players that all felt like this is the play, this is the best list. So whenever you have all these opinions coming in, I guess the best theory is that you should be able to craft a good list. You should be able to craft a list you feel good with, and then in general, it just so happens that everyone feels like it's the best play, I guess.
So kind of leading up to POG, if you can remember back in your testing, can you give us kind of like a timeline of like where you thought, maybe Scorch was the best deck, or like, and then you figured out all that stuff?
So I can definitely give you a timeline, because I was thinking about this a few days ago. As you said, actually, I started off my testing thinking that Scorch was an insane deck. I wrote an article on Scorch calling it the best deck in format, and I thought it was the best deck in format. It was beating almost everything in my testing for, I think it was like the week before Pog. I thought Scorch was the best deck. And then I thought it was good on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I was like, wait, maybe ADPization is the best deck. And so then I really got hard on ADPization. I thought that was the best deck for pretty much the entirety of the week. I think I was telling everyone to play ADPization. I had, I think, 3 or 4 friends play ADPization in day 1 of Pog. I gave them my list and told them it was the best deck in format. And then I think that out of it was 5 people, only 2 of it made day 2 and 3 of them missed. So after that, as I was watching my friends kind of not make day 2 with the list that I told them to play on Saturday, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? This was the deck that I was prepared to play for this weekend, and then it really just kind of flopped in day 1. So that was really the point where I started talking and discussing with the rest of my team, and we all realized that, I've said this other places, we kind of fell to Pikarom because it was the only deck we felt that had a real chance to win if you started behind. Decks like Eternatus and Scorch and ADPZ, while those are all great decks, they don't really have any comeback. The game is all a prize trade for them. They don't have the ability to item lock like Pikarom, to paralyze like Pikarom. So it just gave us a chance to win past the very early game, which we felt like any deck didn't have. And from there, we started testing it. We refined a list that I had made about a week before. We changed 2 cards, and then we rolled with it. So my friend Justin McCarry had been pretty much playing the deck the entire week. He loves Pikarom. He was always going to play it, but I really hadn't been on the deck until I'd say Saturday night.
Wow, that is a crazy last minute shift there. I mean, I will say, like, having the benefit of being able to see what people took to day 1, obviously, like, you earned the benefit being able to like get enough points to qualify for Worlds before. But yeah, it's interesting to see how that sort of changed your mind last minute.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one thing that's interesting to me is like the 2 Vikavolt, right? Because, I'm not really like, I haven't played a lot of Pikarom since like in about a year after the last rotation, but people play it a lot, and think about it. And, I'd seen, and I've thought about like, okay, 1 Vikavolt. How did you land on the 2? Was it like, I don't want to prize them? Or did you feel like there was enough good matchups where having 2 Vikavolts, like actually playing both, would be viable and beneficial?
So I think this was the biggest takeaway by far from the last night of testing we did, where we sat down with 1 Vikavolt in our list, pretty much like everyone else did. And then there was also a Boltund in the list. And the entire time that we'd been testing up until that point, I don't think that I had used the Boltund literally once. I had laddered a ton of games. I had played it in our testing. Maybe it came up a few times, but the card had been extremely useless for me. So that was one observation I made. I said, hey, this Boltund's really useless. However, I feel like I want to use Vikavolt every game. We found out that Vikavolt was insanely good in the Eternatus matchup. You wanted to lead with that. And if they were playing the research version, most of them were still playing Switch. So if you item lock something in the active, they would miss the attack turn too. It was obviously insane in the Baby Blounds matchup. And then pretty much in almost every matchup, as you saw on stream in my finals matchup versus Sander, I led with the Vikavolt. In my top 4 matchup against the Vikavolt, the straight Vikavolt deck, I led with my 2 Vikavolts. So at first it was just a kind of, hey, we want to use this every game. It wouldn't be a bad idea to play 2. But from there, as we did our final testing, it really came up that the second Vikavolt was just really good to have, well, a second copy of. In matchups like Baby Blounds, if you have the 1 Vikavolt, they have a lot of time. They can use their Intrepid Sword to build their hand huge, and then maybe they get lucky enough to discard 5 energy and knock out your Vikavolt. If you only have 1 Vikavolt, then you can still lose from that point. But putting in the second one, that just made it so easy because you would just drop the second Vikavolt and then item lock them again. And this wasn't only true for the Baby Blounds matchup. This was true for almost every matchup. We would go in with the first Vikavolt, item lock early game. We would transition into Pikarom, use the full blitz to set up a bench tag team, and then once they knocked out our Pikarom, we would stamp item lock them when they were at 1 prize card, and then we would just slowly whittle them down from there. So I think that the 1 Pikarom the 1 Vikavolt was an easy inclusion. It's obviously a broken attacker, right? But the second one was really impactful because one, you needed it in almost every matchup, so you couldn't prize it. And then two, just having the second one was so much for your opponent to get through.
I can't get over how like five-head this conversation has become. I'm not kidding. Like it's awesome. I'm so excited because like, and just hearing you like be passionate about like how the deck is run and like the transitions into it, like it's absolutely fabulous. So I mean, it's definitely a victory that I think that you deserve. Congrats on making a last second switch because I played Blacephalon GX for my last second switch because I wasn't comfortable enough on control and that didn't work. So congrats to you. But like now let's like move into after Pog. So Pog's over. Rotation at the time of this recording has happened on PTCGO. You can now play post rotation on ladder and such. Do you think that Pog was kind of Pikaram's last ride, the final goodbye before, you know, the deck is dead?
I personally don't think that the deck is dead. It will never be as good as it was, obviously. Electro Power is one of the most broken item cards ever printed, so just losing a plus 30 damage when you play that card is obviously going to hurt the deck, but I don't think that it's dead. I think it still has the strength of both Full Blitz and Tag Bolt are insane attacks, being able to accelerate 3 energy, and then Tag Bolt being able to take multiple prize cards in one turn. Those are just attacks that other decks don't have access to. So I think that Pikarom is still a fine deck in this format. Vikavolt V is obviously strong as well. You can slow down other decks' start. And on top of that, Inteleon has been getting a lot of hype lately. And unless I'm wrong, Pikarom should destroy Inteleon. So
yeah, it should on paper. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that the deck is dead. I definitely think that it's worse, but I think that people should not write it off. They should test it. They should try to find a good list for it. I think there's a way that Pikarom can still work because the card is just insanely broken in and of its own right, and there's so much lightning support that I can definitely see the deck still being a contender.
So do you think that for like Pikarom at least, this is just kind of me trying to theory craft. Do you think because Pikarom has naturally slowed down with like Thunder Mountain being gone, Electro Power being gone, that especially with the inclusion that you and your group put in with Vikavolt and such an emphasis on that for literally almost every game, do you think that it uses that as well to like consistently use it every single game to force the opponent to slow down? So it's like in the ratio of speed from then to now, it's like Pikarom is still relatively fast, especially when it uses item lock compared to other decks.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the turn one Vikavolt can, like as I said before, it can really slow your opponent down, and that's kind of one of the great things because the deck has the room now. You have to cut so many cards. You have to cut the Thunder Mountain. You have to cut the. You play Nets over a skateboard. You have to cut the Thunder Mountain. You have to cut the Electro Power, but you have a little bit more room now, so you can afford to play higher counts of things like Energy Switch, and then you can go in for the turn one item lock. But on turn two, you can just use your Energy Switch, go right into the Pikarom, and then go into Full Blitz from there. So I think that while the deck does slow down by losing Thunder Mountain, I don't even know if it's that much slower because the deck really wanted the turn 2 Full Blitz. It could get turn 1 Full Blitz, but I wouldn't really say going for that was your game plan. So I think that the deck does get a little bit slower, but that should be its problem in this format. If it has a problem, it's going to be its damage output, I think, because obviously Electro Power, as I said, losing that's a big deal, especially when your 150 damage attack doesn't even one-shot the things in the meta, Centiskorch, Eternatus, all those things. So
Dedenne.
Yeah, even
10 short.
It's that's going to be a big hurdle to get over. You have to maybe play stuff like Zigzagoon or Vitality Band. So I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I think the deck can still keep up in speed at least. Unless you price Coco Prism, that might be
yeah, that might
be auto scoop. Get that out of there.
We might need to put both on back in to get the extra energy acceleration, but I think the deck can still work. It's still a fast, consistent deck, and that's one really good thing about Pikarom.
Continuing on, because you had mentioned that Electro Power was such a prevalent card, and now it's rotating. What are some other things that are rotating that you may be like super happy to see gone out of there, never have to see you again, or maybe like, oh man, this makes me real sad, to see rotate?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about cards that I'm super happy to see rotate. I don't know. I haven't really hated any of the cards. I'm gonna say Malamar because my friend Katron loves Malamar, so I'm gonna say I'm glad to see Malamar get out of this format. But I think the card that I'm sad to see leave is I'm really a big fan of Oranguru. Ultra Prism Control is one of my favorite decks to play. I absolutely love the way that you can just navigate the game. You can have an advantage over your opponent, and you can control pretty much every aspect of it, right? Like if you build the deck perfectly and if you set up decent enough, then there's really nothing your opponent can do. So I personally am a big fan of Oranguru Ultra Prism. I've loved that card. I've played it in so many decks. So I will be personally sad to see Oranguru gone, although I know that it is quite a controversial opinion.
No,
I think Oranguru. Oh, sorry, Sean.
No,
you go.
I think it is a controversial opinion, but I would agree that I was listening to the tag team podcast actually earlier today, and they make a good point that like, yes, Oranguru like can sometimes be very difficult and annoying if you're on the other end of it, but there is a lot of skill that it brings into a meta. I mean, just look at Sander, right? Like your opponent in that game, like it was a struggle, and like, it's because, you have a very good player who really understands this card, making the best use of it. So it is sad to see when a card that requires a lot of skill leaves a format. So then you're, left, in my opinion, you're left with some cards like ADP, which is a good card. Don't get me wrong. But I think the GX attack is becoming tiresome. And I don't think that GX requires a lot of skill necessarily.
Doesn't have much complexity. It kind of, it has the text on its card and it does what it does. It can't really be used for the creativity that Oranguru can be used for.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that your Shedinja deck was the only thing that kept me playing in the Sword and Shield format. I freaking love that deck. It was so fun.
I also love that deck.
It was, it wasn't like the best deck because like in that format, it was either like ADP or mill, right?
Yeah.
I believe. So like, it wasn't the best, but it was something not ADP or like mill, like super turbo mill focused. So that is the only reason that I kept playing in that format. So thank you for that. I'm glad
that someone enjoyed that deck.
But what kind of, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. You had mentioned like Inteleon VMAX is coming up and a lot of people are playing it and hyped about it. What are some other decks or cards specifically that you have seen right now? Because you had also mentioned that you've done some post-rotation testing. You did some with Will Jenkins.
Yes.
What do you think sees the biggest increase now that we're in a new format?
Well, I personally think that, I think Inteleon sees the biggest increase. I think that deck was horrible pre-rotation, and I haven't tested it at all. It might still be horrible post, but it's seeing a lot of success, so it probably is decent in post-rotation. So that's a deck that will probably see a spike in play. I personally think that Eternatus is the best deck in format. I've tested a good bit of it in post-rotation, and while it lost cards like Acrobike, which I loved playing in the deck, it really didn't lose much of its core, right? I mean, it was all in Darkness Ablaze. You have the Eternatus, you have the Crobat. So I think that deck is going to be the front runner for sure in this format. And then the normal decks will be behind it. I think ADP is pretty good. I actually think the Welder decks lose a lot from a skateboard. While everything seems like it would lose from a skateboard, Welder really loses more than everything else because Welder needs two pieces. It needs the fire energy and the Welder in their hand. And whenever you need double switch in your hand to use Jirachi, that just hurts the deck's consistency so much. So I think fire decks take a big hit from rotation, and I expect ADP and Eternatus to just be doing as well as ever.
You're not going to play a Galarian Rapidash and U-turn board combo?
Here we go.
Ingenious.
That's what I keep hearing so many people post in like Twitch chats and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, if you're going to say, just go for it then. Put it in and see how it goes.
Just say, come back. But what is maybe a card or a deck that you think has been like super on, like give us the insights as content creators? Sean and I need help making content. We need some stuff. What's the secret deck that nobody's talking about right now? You can leak it here. Be the first person to talk about it.
Okay, well, it's not really a secret deck, but I have absolutely no idea why people don't play Turbo Patch in Eternatus. I think that Turbo Patch is broken in Eternatus. I play 4 in my deck. It solves one huge problem with the deck, which is that people can exploit you having only one energy on the board. And we've really seen that in one Sanders control deck, right? He had cards that could just return 1 energy. Now, obviously, Eternatus was going to be a fine matchup for him no matter what. But if you look at decks like Inteleon post-rotation, one thing they can do is just pick up the 1 energy on Eternatus, and then you have to attach and pass. If they do that for a while, then they're going to build up enough damage on the board, and you're just going to lose. So I really love Turbo Patch in Eternatus. I think it makes the deck a lot faster, more consistent. It lets you lose an energy drop. It lets you... it's a lot better against Crushing Hammers. So that's kind of my nugget of testing that I think applies to this format is I would for sure be playing Turbo Patch in Eternatus right now.
Turbo Patch is great, but all you have to do is flip heads. But sometimes you just don't flip heads.
That is unfortunately a problem that comes with the card. It's not as good as something like Elixir where you can build your deck around it. It is just a 50-50 no matter what happens. So that is the one downside of it. It can somewhat make your deck less consistent, both because you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and it's not really a good card in some stages of the game. But I think it's still worth playing, at least trying out. I haven't seen it in any list, which is surprising. So
yeah, I don't think I've seen it in any Eternatus list either. So if you ever make content, Isaiah, just drop that nugget right there. You'll be the first one to do it.
Let's go.
But as we like to do with every episode, we like to make sure that every listener can try to at least learn something. So what is kind of the advice that you would give on maybe some current juniors and seniors that will soon age up, or maybe, well, I guess there's no like age up this year or this season, but
it's gonna
like
catch up to them though. It's gonna be 2022 when we play again, and they're gonna be like, when I was playing, I didn't have a license, and now I'm old enough to drink, and now I can play again.
But still, like, yeah, that same concept of like, for those people that are moving from either junior to senior or senior to master, what do you recommend to them before like their first event in that new age group?
So I think that one big thing that you need to understand when you move from seniors and juniors to masters, it can be really intimidating, but you need to know that if you're a good player, then you're still going to be a good player in the masters division. Just because you change division doesn't mean that your skill level is going to, drop exponentially. A little secret, a lot of people say this, is that I don't think that the average master player is that much better than the average senior player. There's a lot of people in masters. There's obviously a lot of really good players that you might not find in seniors, but I think the average player that you can find, it's very doable, very, very possible for someone in seniors that just aged up to be the same skill level as them. So I would say that I would just put in the work. One big thing is you want to find a group of people that you can test with. Obviously, that's not possible for everyone, and if that's not possible, then feel free to message top players. Top players, like, if people message me, then I'll respond. I'll give my honest opinion. I love talking to people, so I would say just when you go into the big events, know that it might seem scary. I was definitely a little bit intimidated when I went into my first Masters event, but know that you deserve to be there if you're there. You have just as much right to do well as anyone else. So just give your best, feel confident, and I think that's what I would have to say on that topic.
So now transitioning into kind of everyone, because like, I don't know, masters, people that are already my age, boomers. So, well, Sean is the boomer of this podcast. Actually.
Okay, boomer of this podcast, I suppose.
But for everybody, kind of like in terms of deck building. So like, I've tried to build my own decks. I'm not gonna lie, it's been atrocious, one could say. But how would you recommend for those that want to take it to that next level of deck building and trying to make their own thing? How do you recommend that they get going on that? Because there's obviously good deck builders and then there's great deck builders.
Yeah, so there's a few things in the deck building and testing process that really make a huge difference. Number one, I think that this isn't something that you hear a lot, but you have to realize that sometimes the basic thing is okay. Sometimes just having your deck with Jirachi in it and the Jirachi engine is what needs to happen. And while you might make your deck different by taking out the Jirachi, that might not necessarily make it better. So one big thing is you have to be okay with realizing that the normal standards might be what you have to do. Another thing is you can't be biased. So if you're testing and one deck's losing, even though you really like the deck, you have to admit, well, this deck is losing. Maybe it's not the best deck. So I think those are two big tips I have for deck building and testing. But when it comes to creating your own decks, whenever you make your deck, you just need to start out with a solid idea, right? If you have a deck that's a solid idea, maybe it's never been thought of before, but that doesn't mean it's not good. For example, Buzzrock. No one had any idea that deck was a thing, and then some Norwegian players brought it to the European internationals, and they smashed the competition, right? So you just have to. It's really great to once again with the testing group just have people you can bounce ideas off of. But even if you don't have that, just build your deck on PTCG Go, look at it, try to compare it to maybe a top deck that's done well. Maybe you can run the same sort of engine, just switch out the attackers and then play it on the ladder. Maybe you hit some matchups and you beat them and it really shows promise, or maybe you find your deck has some flaws. Maybe it loses to a top deck you didn't realize could beat it, or maybe it's just not as consistent. So I think that one thing is you really need to think through the deck, realize that some strategies can be good even if they haven't been thought of, and that often using the best already proven engines for decks can be the best way to even build a new archetype.
Sean, do you have anything you wanna throw?
No, nothing I want to throw over the fence now, but I will say, Isaiah, thank you for coming on. If you want to plug, if you have anything you want to plug, I know you're not affiliated with a proper team, but shout out here to what all the folks you want to shout out.
Yeah, so I want to shout out, first of all, I'm on Twitter, Isaiah Bradner. You can go and follow me on Twitter. I got to shout out all the boys. As I said before, thanks for all we've done this year. Had some great times. Thanks for all the success. I couldn't have done it without any of you guys. And then I need to shout out my mom, because I would not have woken up for day 2 of Pog if it weren't for her. So huge shout out to my mom for coming down and waking me up. And thanks to you guys for having me on again.
There's an alternate universe in which you don't wake up, in which your mom doesn't get you up on time.
Yeah, that's what she was telling me. She was actually scared because she came down at 8, and luckily for me, the tournament had a delay, or I would have missed round 1, because she came down. She was like, Isaiah, you missed round 1. Luckily I didn't. And then that night she was like, I was kind of the hero of this tournament. Not gonna lie, you wouldn't have done anything if it weren't for me. And I was like, that's true, Mom.
Did you tweet and say like, man, shout out to Mom?
I did not.
Oh my gosh, that's that's a disservice.
Wait. This is gonna be posted after I tweet that, so I did tweet that.
Okay, good.
There we go. See, this is a smart man right here. Also, like, your dad also is very supportive on Twitter.
He is very supportive.
That's awesome, because I don't think my dad even knows what a Pikachu is. So.
I got lucky that I started when I was young, so my dad was kind of my first actual testing partner. He would play games against me. He would talk through decks with me. He knows how to play the game, so I love that my dad understands what's going on.
Dang, no, that's awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Isaiah, for jumping on the podcast with us.
All right, that was the interview with Mr. Bradner. Appreciate him for coming on after his Pog victory, and I think he won Pog. And did he go on and did he win a couple of other tournaments?
He was second in the JGB. We should have mentioned that.
Yeah,
but he was second overall. Playing, what deck was he playing, Sean? Take a guess. Yeah, he was. He told us on there that Eternatus was going to be good.
He did.
And I made a video on Eternatus being good, and it got a lot of views. But what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, with Turbo Patch.
Oh, yes, Turbo Patch. I don't know if he was actually playing Turbo Patch, because the list is not. He was? Okay, cool.
Yep, I asked him.
Okay, cool.
So last thing that we're going to do, we're going to start a new segment. It's going to be called Question of the Day. So every week we're going to do this. That's what
it is right now.
Well,
that's what it is right now.
That's what it is.
It's going to be called. I literally, like 5 minutes before the podcast, I was like, Sean, what if we do a Question of the Day thing every episode?
Okay,
so there will be a more creative name in the coming weeks, but get the gist of what it is.
Name pending. But basically, we're going to take like one specific topic. Hopefully, you can submit them as well. This week, we're just pulling it from the very obvious pool of questions or thoughts that are coming out on Twitter, which is
in the last like 12 hours.
Oh my God, so much tweet. The question at hand is, should ADP be banned? Jake, what do you think about the question, even if you don't have a strong opinion on the answer?
I think that ADP is a problem. I think after playing this game for over a year now competitively, I think the idea of its GX, especially specifically the GX Plus, I think is an issue. I think everybody's right. And when they say like it does gatekeep like one prize decks, you know, I played in the format where you either chose ADPZ or Chinchino Mill, or you lost, right? So it's like that part to me is really tricky, but a lot of it also, there's a lot of people also, like, I think ADP should be probably just like, I'm curious to see how ADP, how it would be if it was eroded to where, like, instead of 30 damage with the plus, you would do like 60 damage, you know?
Oh, like not giving you the extra prize, just giving you extra damage.
Yeah, because I think the problem arises with the extra prize. The problem is not the 30 damage. The problem is the extra prize with ADP's GX, to my understanding of playing the game for a while. Now, a lot of people are also saying to ban boss's orders.
See that?
And like, that's a whole different conversation, to be honest. But like,
yeah,
I just want to acknowledge that, because like, would boss really even be a problem if ADP wasn't a thing? Because like, I didn't play back when Lysander was in format. I really didn't. But you go. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think the reason that people see boss in a negative light now is because you have 3 prize Pokemon, right? So
yeah.
When Lysander was in format, and even for most of the time that Guzma was in format, the vast majority of Pokemon were not 3 prize Pokemon. Whereas now, the vast majority of attacking Pokemon or decks revolve around 3 prizers. So the idea that you can knock out 1 3 prizer, Gust, knock out another, and you only need 2 knockouts per game, I suppose it's like, well, that's the risk you run when you play a 3 prizer. But there's the modifier with ADP that makes it so literally any, like, almost any good card is at least a 3 prizer. Yeah.
Or more.
Especially the setup Pokemon like Dedennes and Crobats.
Yeah, the staples for literally every deck. And like, okay, so then you're like, well, just don't play those. Well, okay, then you play like Jirachi or something, right? Well, they knock out your VMAX, there's 4 prizes, and then they just bring up your Jirachi, and boom, there's game.
Yeah, no,
so we're back at square one.
I'm on board with you in the perspective that, like, it definitely feels pretty crappy to think like, okay, they print all these good Pokemon Vs, right? Not even the VMAXs. Like, there's Bolton, there's Vikavolt, there's like a number of different cards that, like, okay, well, but once they get their GX attack off, they knock out just 2 of your main Pokemon, and it's so easy. Like, it's almost impossible to survive an attack from a Zacian, or, you know, any number of cards it could run with, but usually Zacian.
I just think that ADP Z is such a gatekeeper for innovation and like good ideas.
Because the question any deck has to run is right now, can this beat ADP? Because if the answer to that is no, at least for the last 8 months, if the answer is no, then your answer to should I play this deck is also no. You can play it for fun, but you're not going to win. And I think for me, boss is not the problem. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I don't think boss's order is a problem. The format, the game has almost always had Gust, and I think as much as it is weird with boss's order in a 3 prize format, that's just like, I think then your problem is more 3 prizers than Gust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, remember the time when we didn't have
trust
Gust?
me, I think tag teams are not super great for the game either.
Yeah.
After playing in the tag team era and watching a lot of retro formats as of late.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would honestly prefer it if they would have to do some sort of a hard reset for this. But, you know, if the VMAX type Pokemon, evolving Pokemon, were 2 prizers again, like they were in the, like, what was it, the EX era or whatever. That would be nice, because then the games are a little longer. There's more strategy to it. But now you just knock 2 things out and you win. Easy. But I think banning ADP, if they were to errata it, it would have to read like your next, you know, the next Pokemon you knock out, you get an extra prize, not for the rest of the game. Or they need to print something like Pokemon Ranger, right? Which, if you don't remember, like, I don't remember because I didn't play in this format. it is like it's a card that's played and expanded that then turns off ADP's GX after they've used it. So that's a card that a lot of cards in decks and expanded, I think, were playing for a bit. And if they reprint something like that in the Vivid Voltage set, I think it would go a very long way. Because then all of a sudden with ADP, it's like, well, is it now even worth it to ADP if all a deck has to do is play this other card and it negates that, 1 or 2 turns of setup I did for this?
I think something that we also need to keep in mind in this conversation, and I just scrolled on Twitter because I have to multitask whenever I do literally anything. So sometimes I scroll on Twitter as we do the podcast. Diego Casiraga, I probably said your name wrong, I'm sorry, but I think a lot of people maybe know who this is. I think they put out a good tweet that says, Eternatus won POG, JGB in the Azul's sub-tournament, and at the Players' Cup, only one of the decks with ADP won a travel award. So they're wondering, like, if Eternatus is winning all these things and, like, ADP's not winning all these things, like, is it logical to ban ADP? And I kind of, like, that kind of makes sense, right?
I mean,
like, it would make sense to ban ADP during the Sword and Shield format because it was literally, I've said this so many times, it's literally that or Mill that you could have played. So, like, it would make sense to ban, like, ADP or Belubba and Bryson Man during that time because those were, like, literal gatekeepers of the format. And yes, like, ADP does gatekeep a little bit, but also so does, like, Eternatus is killing it.
I will say
right
this.
now, and overly killing it.
No, I think Eternatus is doing very, very well, but they're printing cards that are going to be pretty hard counters to Eternatus. Like they've got this theme going right now. Now, I don't think it'll be a hard counter as much as this was a counter to Dragapult, but the problem with ADP is it doesn't have to always win to still be a problem. That was what somebody's, I think, response to that was. And I think that is the main thing, right? Like,
oh yeah, that's what Azul said.
That's
what Azul tweeted.
Yeah, it makes up enough of the meta that even if it's not winning every tournament, even if there's one deck that can beat it, well, then what it does is it pigeonholes everyone into playing the one deck that can beat it instead of all of the other decks that could be played if it didn't exist. So, look, you're always going to have decks that are good and decks that are not good because a certain deck is good. You always have that. But I think that ADP has an impact on a variety of different decks that expands far beyond the influence any other deck normally is meant to have. I think its sphere of influence is really what matters, right? The sphere of influence of that is very wide because it's literally the sphere of influence is any Pokemon, any deck that has 1 prizers or has 2 prizers that can't withstand an attack. And that's just, frustrating. So I would vote for a ban. I think it's had a whole year to be a card. That's a lot of time. And so then you ban it and you say, cool. Let's reset this.
I also, this is just a question for if David Hodgman, I still don't know how to say his first name. I'm so sorry. I just watched a clip of him taking 22 prize cards in 1 attack. I need some context on this video that I just watched.
22? How is that possible?
I don't understand. He also has 44 prizes available before he starts taking them. So
sounds like a glitch.
I don't understand what's happening, but if he wants to give some context, the main cards that were used, Arceus ADP turns Mew into a water Pokemon. Wait, what? No, Arceus.
Oh,
there's
my
like
gosh.
Some real complex stuff going on.
PTCGO, man, it's the best client.
Oh no, okay, so okay, here. So those were the main cards that they use. There's an Arceus card that allows Mew to be a water Pokemon, and then therefore you can use Misty Lorelei to use Ultra Creation multiple times because you continuously use Misty and Lorelei to allow your water Pokemon to GX again. And since Mew Prime copies Pokemon's attacks, you can constantly use alter creation.
Oh, this is some expanded tomfoolery.
And then, well, it's even farther than that because it has Palkia and Dialga Legend allows you to take more prize cards. So this is like Heart Gold Soul Silver. This is unlimited almost.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is legacy stuff as well. But like,
this is exactly why expanded and back is and trying to mix that with current cards is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's cool.
Instead of plugging my own channel, I'm going to plug David Hotchman's Twitter account or it's not David, it's David. I believe it's David, but DavidHochmann. Check out that video. It's fucking insane. It's cool to watch, but I'm like, what? And it literally just like stopped everything that I was thinking about because I was like, this is insane.
All right. On that note, let's wrap it up, Jake.
Pokemon's a little crazy right now.
Pokemon is crazy. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Subscribe, rate and review us on whatever platform allows you to do that. Even on Yelp.
Check out our Twitter
Review
account.
us on Yelp.
Check out our Twitter account at MetapodTCG, where we'll pose the question of the day there after this video releases. So probably by the time that you hear this and listen to this, the tweet will be up about should ADP be banned, and there's where you can like leave your input, your feedback, maybe like, hey, I really like Sean bringing up XYZ, or like, Jake, you're a freaking idiot. Please don't say that though. You can say that a lot nicer. People do it every day. And yeah, check us out on Twitter.
Check us out on Twitter
account.
And we will catch you next week for another episode of Metapod. Peace out.
Bye.